13th of February this year, the government of Kenya decided to deploy a joint operation for purposes of restoring normalcy in Samburu and 4 other counties in Northern Rift Valley. Mr. Speaker, sir, this came after serious incidences of breach of peace. And therefore, it was required that the efforts of the National Police Service, which is the organ responsible for internal security, be augmented and supported by the Kenya Defense Forces in accordance to our Constitution. Mr. Speaker, sir, the government had 2 options. One, to deploy the KDF to support the National Police Service pursuant to Article 241, 3B, whereby the National Police Service is still in charge and leads the operation, but gets support from the KDF, that support being defined in the operational order agreed upon between the Inspector General of the National Police Service and the Chief of the Defense Forces. The second option which was available was to apply Article 241 3C, where the police would cede the way and allow the military to move in, restore peace and order, and retreat back and allow the police to continue after the operation. It was decided to apply 241 3B first because the architecture of the Constitution, Mr. Speaker, envisages an escalation of measures where the government intends to bring in the KDF. The intention of the framers of the Constitution is first to escalate the deployment gradually. If the police require the KDF input, then that input comes under paragraph B. And if there is need to escalate it to paragraph C, then that would come as a consequence later on. And that's why we took that approach. Mr. Speaker, sir, the status of security in Samburu County since the deployment of the military to assist the police has improved tremendously. The situation has improved from what was the case before the operation was declared. Mr. Speaker, sir, we immediately identified certain parts of Samburu County and the other 4 counties which were being used to hold to hold and hide bandits. And we asked members of the public to vacate from those places. And this, for the information of the House, Mr. Speaker, these are not habitual places of residence. In fact, the mischief we were trying to cure is that we had established that after stealing livestock, these bandits would retreat to very remote caves and gorges, which are not places of habitual residence. Hide there, and they could survey or try and track what we had, the rest of our agencies were doing and the rest of the public and plan further attacks from there. But they had invited what we considered perhaps members of their families. So we established their women and children holed up in those caves and gorges. And that's why we gave the kind of orders we gave after declaring these places disturbed and dangerous. The situation has improved. But after we gave the 24-hour orders for the public to leave these dangerous places, which were gazetted and publicized, the unintended but expected consequence was that some of the criminals took the 24-hour notice to mix with the rest of the population, because after 24 hours, we were able to dominate all the places we identified. And I can report to the House today, Mr. Speaker, that all the places, the caves, the gorges, the ravines, all the places that were being used as hideouts for bandits in Baringo, Laikipia, Samburu, Turkana, and West Pokot counties, and Elgeyo Marakwet, those places are clean, have been cleared and dominated by security forces. Our intention now is to make sure that those bandits will never, never, never get to access those places again. We'll do so by ensuring that our presence and the presence of security agencies in these areas is going to remain permanent. Even after we call off the operation, we will not withdraw the presence of security officers. They will dominate those areas and make it impossible for bandits to retreat to the Corcoran Hills in Baringo, Tandare Valley, the Pura Valley, Malaso Escarpment, and all the gorges and caves that were identified. So I think we need to clarify for the public interest, through you, Mr. Speaker, that those orders were not targeting habitual places of public residence. They were targeting specific, remote, and uninhabited areas where bandits could retreat and plan attacks, but then, pursuant to the requirement of international law on the use of force, we are to give a notice, because some would ask, why give a notice to bandits to vacate? The target was not on bandits. In fact, we did not expect them to vacate. We did not expect them to vacate because these bandits had grown horns and were full of impunity and theatrics. That notice was intended at the general public. They could be members of their families, women and children, because under international law, if you're going to use force, then you must ensure that that force is targeted at armed criminals or belligerents or people who are resisting authority, and members of the public should have that notice. And I am happy to report, Mr. Speaker, those places are now clear. With regard to the attacks that we continue to experience in those areas, is as a result of some of the bandits who took the 24-hour window to mix up with the public. We are working very hard to make sure that we also extinguish the remaining threats. And therefore, in a nutshell, the operation, in our view, is a success. We have learned in the last 2 months there are still gaps. We are going to seal the gaps. We will stay there as long as it takes. I want to assure the people of Samburu County and all the other counties affected, including counties affected by this menace, but which are not part of the operation yet. I want to assure them the crime of violent cattle theft, rustling, banditry, and visiting terror on the public by criminals. We will make sure that that culture And that practice is finished, and it will be part of the history of Kenya. We are determined to do whatever it takes. It takes a while because of the intricacies involved, but Honorable Speaker, we are on course and we will win the war. It's either Kenya or bandits. It's either the law or crime. One has to give way. Kenya will not give way. The government will not give way. The people of Kenya will not give way. Bandits, criminals, have to give way.